Indiana Jones, It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. The Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute. This is the podcast where we use the film Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade to test the theory of maters before paters 1 minute at a time. I'm Tom Taylor.
I'm Pete Mart.
I'm Gerald Christopher. It doesn't matter because I'm not in this movie anyway. Porter.
And I'm Tasha Robinson, the film and TV editor for TheVerge.com.
You are. And thank you for coming back, Tasha.
I had to. It was the hair. We have to talk about the hair.
You had to come back for the hair. We got you with the hair.
Yes.
Let's find out about that hair. That hair happens in minute 53. And minute 53 begins with Vogel yelling, "Enough, she dies!" and ends with Indy asking his dad how he knew Elsa was a nut.
Asking him for the second time. Well, I mean, we'll get to that, but it's a weird beat.
Yeah. And did Elsa tell Vogel that Indy would give in like this? Like, in other words, is this her plan, or is this Vogel's plan, or is this somebody else's plan?
I think it's Elsa's plan. She comes across as clever, and also like they had to set that thing up on the moment. I think that as soon as they heard gunfire and screaming and the sound of a single rose petal fluttering to the ground, she threw herself into his arms and like threatened to kill me.
Yeah. So has she been working this from the beginning? Like, did they have a dossier on Indy before he even came over, and is like, has never been with a woman? Like, she's like, okay, I know how I'm going to play this guy, and I know the way we're going to work it. And so this has all been leading up to this. Has been the plan all along.
Could be.
Yes.
I'm not clear on the plan at this point. I like if the whole point was just to get the diary, like why didn't she take the diary earlier? Like they already have Henry. Yeah. She's been hanging out with him this whole time. Why didn't she just walk off with the diary earlier in the film?
Yeah.
And even if it's all like a ruse, like why does Vogel only seem to hold her hostage to get Indy to disarm himself? Why doesn't he also say, chuck the diary over here?
Yeah.
And again, it's like a movie thing. Like Henry, who we have zero reason not to trust, is telling us, the audience, that Indy's not listening, but we're listening, that she's a Nazi, and that Indy should not trust her, and that she's fine. She's not going to get shot. She's a Nazi. So then, if the reason for Vogel not asking for the diary is so that she can go over there and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and then take the thing, that's like not even like a reveal. That's not it. Like we're already like 5 steps ahead of Indy and Elsa because Henry just told us everything that's happening. So it's all a very weird. It's constructed as a movie scene and not like an actual thing that might be happening or something.
Well, I think part of that must be intentional because it kind of sets up later in the movie. Like they learn now that Indy can be manipulated by threatening somebody he loves, and now that'll have a much bigger payoff later in the movie. So maybe that's
a good point.
I mean, I think the whole like not asking for the diary thing is proof that this is not Vogel's plan. The holding Elsa hostage wasn't, and he doesn't know what comes next. He's like, put down the gun or the girl gets it, and he puts down the gun. And he's like, so logically the girl doesn't get it. She's the one who has to take the step to go get the diary.
When they arrived at the castle, then did Elsa tell Vogel, "Hey, look, he has the diary on him. I know, he showed it to me."
Yeah.
Is that what happened? Like, so Indy goes to save his dad by swinging, and we have like about 2 minutes. Did Elsa run out of that room, go get Vogel, and say, "Hey, look, we're here. Hello," and he has the diary in his pocket.
And sorry about the butler.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. Well, then as you said, and then they set this thing up as you said on the fly, Tasha. And then do they need to have Indy and his dad? I guess they don't just need the diary. They need the diary, and they need both Joneses alive.
It is possible that she decides that they need Indy because like Henry hasn't pulled it off. Henry's been looking for this thing for 40 years. They might need him to decipher the diary because maybe he's got crampy old man handwriting, but they don't necessarily need the guy who couldn't find the thing. Whereas, Indy got his hands on it and has been progressing a lot faster. So it could just be, there's a lot of stuff going on in these movies that's just, let's follow Indiana Jones. Like from the first sequence of the first movie, let's follow Indiana Jones who can figure out where these things are. And then once we're there, we'll take it off of him.
Right.
Although
swooping in and claiming it is easier than finding it yourself.
But it to me, it feels a little bit like they would have had to script this a little bit in advance, because like the way he shoves her towards him, like it almost feels like they had to, like they were sitting around rehearsing this while Indy was in talking to his dad. Like, okay, I'm going to toss you, I'm going to push you over and you grab the diary. Wait, you toss me or I push you? No.
Yeah.
Well, it's because Vogel's seen the first movie. He knows how this goes. You throw me the gun, I throw you the woman.
Right. Toss me the Elsa, and I throw you the book.
It's like it's a weapon for whatever I happen to have. Like that's the Indiana Jones deal.
Mm-hmm.
What's up with the weird bar slide of the gun? Like they make a point.
I have a theory.
Oh, really?
Yes, because he throws it across the table and it shatters the glass, and he does it with a lot of emotion. And it's violent. Like he surrenders the gun violently.
Yeah.
And ironically, and I think that maybe is to show like Indy's really kind of sixes and sevens here. He doesn't know what's going on, and I think that we're to believe that he's really, really in love.
I think he is.
He just he kind of throws his hands up and he does it like, okay, yeah, here. Like
Poor
we know
sap.
Indiana Jones. Yeah, when he's got a card up his sleeve, he's kind of like he puts the gun down next to him, or he'd put the gun down, but he'd sneakily, pull out another gun or his whip or. You know what I mean? But in this, he really relinquishes all control. He's nowhere near the gun.
Yeah.
He's completely vulnerable.
I like that theory for explaining why there's glass there that shatters, because it's kind of bringing up the emotion of the moment. It doesn't explain why there's a big hefty ashtray that doesn't break or get knocked off of anything, and why there's a newspaper there. Like just visually, usually having something in the foreground like that means it's important, means it's a clue to something. And in a movie, when you have a newspaper lying in the foreground and the camera moves to find it, normally that's because there's some information there that they want you to have. And everything about this shot says the ashtray and the newspaper, man, I don't know. It's a clue. It's a key. It's something. No, it's just a bunch of stuff cluttering up that bar, I guess.
Well, we do talk about the newspaper. Didn't Indy's dad have the stats on marriage?
Yeah.
As the bookmark? Was that a newspaper clip?
It looked more like it might have been out of a book, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was also from like 10 years in the future or something.
No, I know, but I wondered if that was supposed to be what the newspaper was doing there.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Because I noticed the newspaper too.
But building on what you said, Jerry, like Elsa, like after, Indy gives up the gun and Vogel tosses Elsa over to Indy and she says, "I'm sorry." And he says, "No, don't be." And the lighting looks almost exactly like it did in Bespin when he's talking to Leia for the last time. And like the sweatiness.
Oh, yeah.
And when he says, "No, don't be," that seems like the most compassion that Indy has shown to anybody in any of these movies. Like, I feel like that's the most vulnerable he's capable of being. And he's just doing something that he does because he really cares about her.
See, I'm thrilled you brought that up, because my note is it's really interesting and kind of strange to see Indy so tender.
Mm-hmm.
When he says no, don't be, and I can count on one finger or none, maybe a stump of a hand, how many times I've seen Indy be tender.
Right, and it's frustrating that it happens at a time when he's being duped. He's like he seems silly here and dumb because he's don't be. I love you so much. Oh wait, hey, get back here! Why are you sitting with the Nazi all of a sudden?
And there's these sweeping John Williams strings in the background that just indicate like Indy is actually in love.
That's pretty
It
weird.
seems like he's definitely, he's in something. Because I can't imagine if Vogel tossed Willie at him, he would have said, "No, don't be." He would have been, "Well, I guess we're going to be a whole lot poorer." Like he would have had some kind of a wisecrack or
No,
something.
he would have said,
"Shut up, Willie."
He would have, but you're embarrassing me.
Jones.
He would have thrown her off the castle and in a puddle, and they all would have laughed, and Shorty would have said, like, "Very funny."
Very funny.
Yeah,
Fortune
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's like I'm starting to put together that as much as we, Tom, you talk about like why how come no one remembers Elsa at all in these movies? You're like, oh, there's Marion, oh God, then there's Willie, Jesus, and then it's like, oh, and then there's his dad.
Sure.
Holy Spirit.
That's how everybody. And I'm like, but if you're the directors or the writers, like they're building this to look like, oh my God, Indy has found his one true love. She's an archaeologist and a field worm, and she's not afraid to get her hands dirty. And she's his equal in terms of historical smart stuff and pagan symbols. She knows about pagan symbols from the 4th or possibly 5th century.
Yeah.
And it's just like they're showing Indy with this orchestration and the music, and no, don't be. It's just like, whoa, this is getting heavy, man.
Yeah.
And I think that's what
Really?
makes this that's what makes this fake out so powerful. Like I think this is the one in the movie that lands the most for me. And she when she says you should have listened to your father, and then she immediately transforms, like she becomes somebody completely different, and she gets kind of coquettish, and she smiles at him. And I think this is the part for me that it clicks that Elsa's really a bad guy. Like
But don't we
I've
already
never
know
fully...
that from like a minute earlier when Henry's saying like that character right there who Pete is talking about is a Nazi?
I mean, I think he's supposed to come across as a bit of a daffy old man. Like we've seen him have his priorities in the wrong place, be completely confused by like his son showing up out of nowhere isn't nearly as much a thing as this vase. Like despite the smirk on his face, I don't think we're necessarily supposed to take him seriously in that moment. And like Indy certainly doesn't.
Well, and the real irony of the whole scene is the fact that how he knows that she's actually a Nazi is 100% the last,
Yeah.
the last thing you would ever expect on how he would find out that she's a Nazi. Also, to be fair, I mean, you're right here, Tommy, but to be fair, we're watching the movie 1 minute at a time.
Oh, totally.
And it cut off immediately when you're like, oh, last minute, we just figured out.
Right.
It's like, but this is all unfolding within a few seconds, really, 10 or 15 seconds.
Well, because she also kind of denies later that she really is a Nazi. But you can't really deny that she, like Indy here, is the most vulnerable he's ever been, and she just completely toys with him and then devastates him.
I don't know. I feel like he was a lot more vulnerable in the minutes we covered in Temple of Doom, where he was, being mind raped, getting whipped, getting strapped to a rock. I mean, here, the moment after she does her reveal, he once again, as he did in minute 51, he kind of turns to the camera, and it's such a weird moment. Like he never fully makes eye contact with it. If he did, it would almost be a Looney Tunes moment. Just like, oh my God, can you believe what just happened?
Elsa never sides with Nazis at home.
Totally. I love how Elsa has this golden corona around her head. As she absconds with the Grail Diary, and she sort of retreats. Right, and I brought this up before. Like yellow means cowardice and betrayal, and it's interesting because when, as you said, Tasha, when Indy turns, he kind of turns towards us, and there's that same lighting is on him, and it's like that's the moment he realizes he's been so betrayed, and the light that's still coming through, and it kind of illuminates his face with this yellow, and you're like, oh, that's the sun, because it stopped raining outside, because the sun is actually illuminating the truth here.
Well,
I mean,
hey, don't I get like an A+?
I laughed, and
I'm laughing at Tom's laughing.
I laughed, I cried, I agreed with what you
I
said.
love it too.
I agree with
you're
you.
Where he's like he passes freshman like arts
Symbology
and,
classes,
filmography or whatever the hell it is. Yeah, symbology. Yay for
the
Jerry.
lighting on his face is weirdly consistent throughout these minutes. Like when he's in a room that's only lit by a white, like a bright white light on a desk, he's still got red light on his face. Here he's standing facing into the sunlight, and he's still got a red light on his face, and it's weird to me. It's distracting because it's obviously
you don't like it.
Well, it's meant to be symbolic, but I get caught up in like what exactly is the light source that is making two people standing right next to each other have completely different colors on their faces? Like, what exactly are we seeing?
But he almost goes into shadow here, and I feel like I love this movie, but I wonder if he had really gone completely into the shadow here, and this had turned into a little bit different movie, and he'd become a lot darker and grittier and vengeful. Would that have made this movie? Could it have reached Raiders level of a great film?
Where he just flat out murders her at the end. Well, I'm wondering, Pete. You said earlier on, like way early on, like when we first started talking about like Sean Connery in the credits, I think that it was Connery's idea that he slept with Elsa also. And so I'm I'm assuming that that's the only reason he knows that she's like, even in earlier versions of the script, like he wouldn't have known that she was a Nazi because he didn't sleep with her. So like if we had this whole scene without Henry saying, "Hey, she's a Nazi," and we had no like even just hint that maybe she was evil, would that betrayal? I mean, it seems to work great for you, Pete. You're happy with it and you love it, but I'm wondering for myself, would that be more powerful and more like, oh my God, really? She actually, oh geez. Like it wouldn't even be, oh, she actually is a Nazi. You'd be like, oh my God, she's a Nazi. Like, you know.
From what I've read about it, that was always in the script. It happened at a later time. But Connery improv'd the line here and everybody laughed, so they decided to keep it. Like it showed up in a different part of the script, and they ended up rewriting it because of an ad lib that he did that people responded positively.
Okay.
But I mean, I asked this, I think, last minute here, and nobody answered me. Is that like it really sets up a tension? Does he trust his father or does he trust Elsa here? And I mean, it's a whole new line or a whole new tension here that we would not have had. And you could say, oh, he's going to trust his father, and you're like, not necessarily. They're estranged. His dad just berated him. I mean, they don't really have a warm relationship. And here, Indy is all weird and doughy-eyed, and they're portraying him as just this, this whole giddy as a schoolboy, not only about like his archaeological digs, but about Elsa. And he really, really does not want to believe his father at all. I mean, at the point where he gives up. I mean, obviously he gives up everything, and it's it's his downfall. So,
I mean, I think this is entirely unintentional, but to me, I find it a little hard to take this scene as seriously as I think the film wants me to because of her hair. She, like, seriously, you brought up the fact that, she has this kind of golden corona around her and the yellow is symbolic. To me, blonde hair in a Nazi movie just means we're trying to play up the Aryan race. We're trying to play up the Aryan ideal, which at this moment, she very much fits. But at the same time, she looks like she's wearing the world's worst fright wig. Vogel's had his face all up in her hair, and I don't know, she looks like Lion-O and the Thundercats. Like all of her hair's on one side of her face in this weird big poof. Yeah. And she's trying to pull off this, I have betrayed you, and I am a German villain. And I'm just thinking, get a comb, lady.
I look like Gene Wilder.
Seriously.
She has that move when she backs away from Indy and she's got the thing and she reveals herself to be a filthy Nazi. She kind of leans back against Vogel, and it always reminds me of Han Solo leaning up against Chewbacca in Star Wars. Like just kind of like this strong presence that he just kind of like fully trusts that he leans up against. I don't know if that counts as dream theory stuff, but it's I'm reporting it because I'm doing this movie minute by minute.
Well, I joke about this, but this is the true official Tale Before Grail moment. Like just across the whole thing. We talked about it last minute, but this is it. This is it. And it has consequences. And I don't know if we've seen it be this heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. They're really. I mean, the directors and the writers are really throwing a lot of that message at us here. And I agree with you, Tasha. It might not play out as heavy as it's supposed to.
Well, it does play out heavily when he turns to the camera. I mean, as I say, if
like,
he had made eye contact with the camera, it would have been silly. But as it is, he is literally bringing his face around so we can see the depth of the pain that he's in. I mean,
the one other time maybe I've seen Indy like this, maybe, is when Marion blows up.
Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's
and he's like, which, by the way, Marion blew up.
Yeah.
Not to bring that up again, but I mean, when Marion blows up and dies.
Yeah. He finds Marion 2 later on, but it's not the same thing. But no, I think what's bugging me about this scene, and I've been harping on like the Henry's already tipped the card that she's a Nazi already for, so it's not a big reveal. But I think what's actually bugging me is like, I like Elsa, she's nice, but like they made out once, like earlier this morning, and big deal. Like I don't think this moment is earned at all. I don't think this is. I don't think. Indy might be shocked. He might be surprised. Son of a gun, that chick from earlier is a Nazi. But like to be like cut to the core like this and everything, it seems a little goofy.
Yeah. Well, that's because you're right, Tommy. It doesn't work.
Oh, thank you.
But no, it doesn't work. It's strange that they choose. I mean, I get the message, right? The message that Indy he truly found love. I don't know.
See, that's
but
weird.
No, if you look at however many, there's 3 Indiana Jones movies. If you look at all of them,
yeah,
you're like, this is where and when you wanted to give us that message.
Yeah.
So you brought up
weird.
the fact earlier that we've kind of got a bit of a biblical theme going on with the 40 years wandering in the desert looking for the Grail. Like Henry spent his whole life looking and failing, and not only failing, but failing in a way that's very biblically symbolic. Do we think there's a degree here to which the problems that they're having are because the Grail is about purity, and the quest for the Grail has to be about purity, and yet he's been, dallying with this Nazi woman. His father has actually slept with her and couldn't find the Grail. Is it because they're impure and they have to shuck off that connection in order to be worthy of finding the Grail?
Could be.
I like
Yeah.
Because, women.
I know.
Women are terribly unpure and sinful and gross.
They don't have to
He's
be Nazis
really
to be
get rid of that.
Yeah, it sounds like you went to my grade. Yeah.
I have a question about the next scene. Is there a single note difference between this theme that we hear, this Nazi march, and the Trade Federation music from Phantom Menace? Is there any difference at all? I'm actually dead serious. I don't know. Jerry, you can sit this one. Go check your phone, Jerry.
Music is, I have no idea.
I'm mercifully leaving you out of this. I don't want to drag you into this.
Maybe the accents here are a little better than the Trade Federation's accents.
No, that's fair. Yeah,
a little
that's
bit.
Totally valid.
I don't remember the Trade Federation having a cool-ass circle of swords on their wall.
True.
I like that sword. It feels like there's going to be like a knife throwing act coming up soon.
Oh yeah, it looks exactly like an old school movie knife throwing thing.
Yeah.
They're gonna strap one of them to it and huck knives at it until the other one explains where they can find the. And why didn't that happen exactly?
I don't know. We were robbed.
Do you think Donovan decorated this, or do you think they just this is kind of how it looked before they moved in?
It's just standard castle stuff.
See, I'm wondering is this the armory or is it the Mead Hall? Or both, because it seems like a disaster waiting to happen if you combine your Mead Hall with the armory.
I am not sure that Mead Halls came standard equipped with giant olive green curtains.
Right.
That's a really weird choice.
Those are tapestries, aren't they?
Tapestries have embroidery on them that tells the story of your people. The heroic deeds they've done. Apparently, the Nazis have done no heroic deeds because their tapestries are completely undecorated. It's just a curtain.
They're blank.
It's funny and weird when they all walk into this room and the Trade Federation music is playing, and Indy sort of mumbles to himself and to the audience like this weird little dumb trashing her own room, and I fell for it or whatever. Like, A, it's like, thanks, Indy, we were watching the movie, we get it. But B, it's like, why is that the one like ruse of hers that he feels the need to explain to the audience or to his dad or something. That seems like a weird.
Yeah.
I don't know why that line is there at all.
No,
I think it's just so
either.
they can do the she talks in her sleep.
Yeah,
Although that was
you
ad
could be
libbed.
right.
Yeah, I don't know. By God, I just listened
So
to
how
it
are those
too, and
connected?
I just listened to it, and it totally is the Trade Federation. It's exact. Like, it's exact.
That's what I thought. Thank you, Pete.
Is what's Indy's dad thinking right now? Like as they walk in, it's like, okay, so his son didn't listen to him. Mm-hmm. They're now taken prisoner.
Yeah, he should be furious right now.
But you know what's interesting is he's very unemotional just throughout.
Well, it's
which I kind of like. That's why I sort of believed when he was like, she's a Nazi. No, don't let you go ahead, shoot her. It's all right. She's a Nazi. And you're like, well, how come he's not shaking him or hitting him over the head? You're like, oh, look. He's just like, that's kind of how he is. Like he's, like I said, he's eccentric and he's pretty weird. He's just walking through, like what, now he's what, double captured?
Well, yeah, he's probably been in this
what
room 4 times
It's
already.
like
He seems to literally be doing an absent-minded professor thing here, because Indy turns to him
Yeah.
and says, "How did you know she was a Nazi?" And he's like, "Huh?" And he says it again, which is just such a weird beat. Like, why was it necessary to repeat that twice? Like, if we're not going to find out where his brain is, like, I like to imagine that he's thinking back to that Ming vase and just like, now that I think about it, like in the 14th century, it was actually discovered that different methods of porcelain accretion. And he's like, he's just completely somewhere else right now.
No, I think I know where he is. I think he's thinking back about somebody. I think he's thinking it back to how he knew she was a Nazi.
Maybe.
That's possible.
Because he asked it, he's like, like, he's like, oh yeah,
give me
that's
a
how I
minute.
knew.
I don't know if I think he's just kind of looking around.
Yeah, he seems to be off in
Like,
space. Like, he's
Oh,
not.
I wonder if this is where the food comes from.
Yeah.
Like,
Did they mix the Mead Hall and the
Yeah, did they in the armor?
Are we about to get
What's
mead?
that?
God, do I have to remember my drinking songs? I don't think I know all the verses anymore. Crap, what comes after beer, 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 tiddly, beer, beer, beer? No, he seems a million miles away at this moment. Like, Indy's looking around, casing the room, looking at the guards, and he's just looking off into space somewhere.
It's
Well,
weird,
I
because
mean, he
sometimes he's
doesn't- I
totally
mean-
daffy like that, and then other times he's like sharp as a tack. I guess like anybody's dad at a certain age.
I like that there's no difference between, his demeanor at all, if he's captured or liberated or recaptured or he's just kind of whatever.
He's having a fine time.
See, he's having a
fine time.
I don't know. I got a different impression from the scene than through you. Like, I felt like he wanted him to repeat it because I think he's proud of what he's about to say. Like, I feel like he's like, huh? Like, I feel like that was an acted, huh?
That's really funny.
From what I've read about the kind of the shaping of this script around Sean Connery, it really sounded like he was just perpetually like, and here's another cool thing I could do, and here's another cool thing that he could have done in the past, and like that he was the one who sort of said, well, everything that Indy does, Henry should have already done and done better. And like some of that is kind of building the tension that exists between these two men and the sense of competitiveness and like the sort of sense of dependence, which we get just a little taste of when Indy first shows up and Henry says, "Junior," and his first response is, "Yes, sir." That says a lot about their old relationship. But I also just get the sense of Sean Connery standing around in the background going, "Can you make my character cooler? Cooler than that." No,
Right.
even cooler than that. And like, he can't take over the film in a kick-ass way because this is Indiana Jones' film, but he can just be like, well, I'm too tough to be scared of Nazis. I'm too confident to not to fall for this Elsa trick. I've already slept with her. I'm not falling for that.
I was in Dr. No.
I'm so disappointed in you.
Oh, we have a Connery off.
There we go.
You're a terrible son.
Speaking of terrible sons and daughters, hey, this just in from Professor Christy Porter. Jugs before mugs.
Whoa.
Wait a minute.
Wait, phallus before chalice.
God. She's been busy.
Oh, she's been busy.
Yeah.
Let's see. Delilah, Bathsheba, Salome. How biblical is it that Indy's Achilles heel is serpents and women?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah. She's keeping it Christian-like.
It's a good Beaumont girl.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow. The snakes thing.
Well, look, we have debated this, talked about this for 3 movies, and this is like this is a big minute, a huge minute right here. And the way they're portraying it is like, oh my God, is Indy ever going to trust and love again?
Who cares? Oh, that was mean.
It's
No, it's all right. I don't know. We have to see what happens.
I guess we do.
Now who's the avocado?
See? I'm just a big avocado.
God.
Sorry,
That's what's fun. We kick the avocado around on this show.
We do.
all the
Sometimes it's never
avocado
you, Pete.
references. All the avocado references are the pits, guys.
Hey!
Hey-o.
That was beautiful.
That was.
Tasha,
Speaking of the Marx Brothers,
Hey, you say the magic word and the ducks come down.
thank you, Mr. Connery, for being here with us these past few days. This has been excellent.
It was my pleasure.
Why don't you please tell everybody once more where they can find you in the world of the internets?
Sure. I am the film and TV editor at TheVerge.com. I'm on Twitter at Tasha Robinson. And you can find me and some friends podcasting every other week at The Next Picture Show, where we take a current movie, compare it to an old movie that inspired it or otherwise rhymes with it, and see what the two films have to say to each other.
Awesome. Everybody, please check that out.
Yeah.
Check out Tasha wherever you can find her because she's awesome, as you know. And please, all you Indiana Jones people, you should head over to tpublic.com and find our Indiana Jones Minute gear. You can get yourself some t-shirts, you can get a phone case, you can get tapestries, you can get it all. And it's all very cool with our Indiana Jones in-jokes and stuff. And you'll look awesome. And then you'll be all geared up to come back here tomorrow for minute 54 of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade here on the Indiana Jones Minute.
do we have a betrayal bell?
Oh. Yeah, we haven't needed one before, have we?
I don't know.
We should
A
get
never
one.
love again bell?